you think you know anything about wealth?
Today we are uncovering the secrets of Renaissance Florence, where fortunes were built and hidden in plain sight. A brilliant invention helped the Medici track who was really rich and who was drowning in debt.
The Medici family turned religious imagery into their greatest financial weapon.
But what if I told you the Medici didn't start as bankers, but as wool merchants? That's right. Before counting florins, they were all about that fine Florentine wool, which was basically the gold of Florence. Florence was known for its wool trade, and the Medici made their first fortune in this booming industry. They were part of the Arte della Lana, the most powerful guild in Florence at the time. Wool was Florence's fashion empire. The money from wool gave the Medici the power to move into a much bigger industry, banking. That's when Giovanni de' Medici created one of the biggest banks in Europe, the Medici Bank. But here's where things get really interesting. Inside these walls, something was hidden from plain sight. Behind the humble-looking walls of this palace lies one of Florence's hidden treasures, the Chapel of the Magi. And this wasn't just any chapel. It was painted by Benozzo Gozzoli in 1459 and shows the three Magi, or three kings, traveling to Bethlehem. But here's the twist. Each king also represents an important figure from the Medici world. The oldest king, Caspar, is thought to be the Emperor John VIII's Palaiologos, symbolizing the Medici's connection with the Byzantine Empire. The middle king, Melchior, may represent Sigismondo Malatesta, an Italian military leader allied with the Medici. And finally, the youngest king, Balthasar, could be Lorenzo de' Medici himself as boy, or possibly Galeazzo Maria Sforza, the Duke of Milan. The Chapel of the Magi had been built with a special permission and was one of the first private chapel of its kind, a privilege given by the Pope himself. Why? Because the Medici were financing the Vatican, making them invaluable to the Church. In the fresco, we see important figures like Cosimo de' Medici riding a donkey, and not to Jesus entering Jerusalem, symbolizing humble divine authority. But there's more to it than meets the eye. At that time, the Church forbade charging interest on loans, what we call usury, since only God was thought to have ownership over time and the future, which interest represented. Making money from loans was sinful, but the Medici found a way around it. By aligning themselves with the story of the three kings bringing gifts to Christ, they were justifying their financial dealings as a form of giving to the Church. It was clever religious branding. This fresco was as much about faith as it was about politics. The Medici weren't just showing off. They were painting themselves as the wise, holy rulers of Florence, sending a message that they were more than just bankers. They were the city saviors. Speaking of branding and managing wealth, here's where things get really interesting. The Medici were one of the first to fully embrace double entry bookkeeping, a game-changing innovation. Why? Because it wasn't enough to just have money coming in and out, you had to know the true wealth of your clients and yourself. By tracking every transaction as both a debit and a credit, they could see exactly where the money was going and who was actually rich versus just pretending.